Hello guys, this is Snap Revision and today I'll be making a video on the theme of fate in Romeo and Juliet. I apologise for the bad quality, I'm quite new to the whole YouTube thing too. Okay, so without further ado, we can analyse that from the very opening of the play we are led to believe that fate is to blame for the tragedy, and the prologue sets up this idea by presenting us with a pair of star-crossed lovers, and this is dramatic irony because the audience is put in an omnipotent position to interpret this how they will, and it shows that destiny has already determined the fate of the eponymous characters. And really, fate just falls in everywhere, as in the prologue, the prologue talks about fate, and then the family feud, the deaths immediately after the wedding, and the letter doesn't reach Romeo. It all just fits in with the theme of fate, and also the timing of Romeo's death just before Juliet wakes up. This video is not in any particular order, but I'm just going to quickly analyse what Mercutio's last words were before he died. And he says, "A plague on both your houses," and the audience is reminded of the protagonist's faith, and Mercutio is cursing both families, and it foreshadows the loss that the families will face, and it also marks the beginning of Romeo and Juliet's tragic flaw. So moving on to Romeo then, he just before he meets Juliet for the very first time, he says, "Some consequence yet hanging in the stars, some vile forfeit of untimely death," and this is foreshadowing that he will die young, and Romeo envisages that his death is quickly going to happen upon this night. And the stars also reminds the audience of the prologue, and we have to remember that the Elizabethan society believed in fate and destiny, and this would be quite common for them, that fate can lead to a tragedy. Moving swiftly on to the second point then, Romeo also says, "Oh, I am Fortune's fool," and this he says this straight after his wedding when he kills Tybalt, and fate is kind of implying that fate is responsible for Tybalt's death, not Romeo, and he's discreetly referencing to the prologue that Romeo and Juliet are fated for misfortune, and Fortune is mocking him. Another very significant thing Romeo says is, "I defy you stars," and this is irony because death has already been determined by the stars, and from the prologue where it says star-crossed lovers take their life, so the audience already know that the eponymous characters will take their life, but he can't really defy destiny because we know this from the prologue. He just has to live up to destiny, and stars is a really key thing, and it's mentioned again and again, and it's all linking to the theme of fate, destiny, and this world of supernatural. One final thing for Romeo then is that in the tomb he says, "And shake the yoke of inauspicious stars from this world wearied flesh," and this is showing that he's killing himself to free himself of this bad karma, and yoke is referring to like a horse tied to a cart to drive it. So he's shaking it off and getting rid of this burden of carrying like a sort of cart sort of burden, and inauspicious meaning honest stars, and it refers to like how stars have been, fate has been right all along, and he is destined to die, but he thinks his destiny is living without Juliet, and that too is to die and not live with Juliet, and it refers to his ominous destiny. And we can also really notice that death brings them together, Romeo and Juliet, and they will remain together in the hereafter, like just like all of their activities have been through the night time, and this idea that death and darkness and night all links together, and it shows that the night has always been with them. This secrecy between their relationship has always supported them. When Juliet meets Romeo, she says, "My life is like to be my wedding bed," and this is foreshadowing that her marrying Romeo will lead to her death. And we can also notice that the audience is always reminded of death constantly throughout the play, and this is also bringing up the theme of death, but we're not here to talk about the theme of death really. So continuing with Juliet, the last moment Romeo and Juliet see each other alive after they spend the night together, and when Juliet next sees Romeo, he's dead in the tomb, but when she looks out of her window, he seems dead already to her, and she says, as one dead in the bottom of a tomb, either my eyesight fails me, or thou lookest pale. And this is Shakespeare reminding the audience of what fate has to offer for the two lovers, and he's kind of saying that really you are going to die, and she kind of knows that. She's got an instinct that she knows he's going to die, and he already looks dead to her, as if, and this is a key point in the whole play, because this is the last time they see each other alive and in each other's company. But I think the most significant thing Juliet says, and this is really the thing you need to mention to get those grade 9s, is, "O fortune, fortune, all men call thee fickle. If thou art fickle, what dost thou with him that is renowned for faith? Be fickle, fortune, for then I hope thou wilt not keep him long, but send him back." And over here, Juliet feels helpless. It's as if she's begging the goddess, and we'll talk about the goddess later, to spare Romeo and bring him back. And she feels sort of helpless, and as if she knows he will die or fears he will. And now about the goddess, this Dame Fortuna, goddess of fortune, and she's fickle, which is unpredictable. And this goddess helps men or cast them down, and it kind of shows that Juliet wants her to be kind to Romeo, and she's kind of giving a reason, and she's saying Romeo is full of faith. Why do you want anything to do with him? So in my opinion, it's really, really key to mention this goddess Dame Fortuna, and it will really give you them higher grades, really, if you mention that in an essay about fate or even Juliet, how she at one point feels helpless and she needs to ask the help of something supernatural. It kind of shows desperation, doesn't it? Now the friar, he's very, very key in the theme of fate, as he's always saying these small sharp quotations that really link to fate. For example, unhappy fortune. But more importantly, he says a greater power than we can contradict. And he's kind of showing that he's saying that either God or fate has ruined your plans for Romeo and Juliet. And but he doesn't realise that he's actually also responsible, or he does realise, but he had ulterior motives and he doesn't want to be caught up in all of the drama. But he's really responsible, and we need to remember his role in the actual play, that he kept the marriage a secret. He married the lovers in the first place, hid their love for each other, he didn't really tell anyone, and he also gave Juliet the poison, the potion. And really, he's a really, really key character in terms of fate, because he's always reminding Romeo and giving him hints about what's going to happen, and he's telling him not to be haste. And now over here he literally just says a greater power, and this is open to the audience to interpret it, because it could be religious, because at the time belief in God was quite strong as well, but it could also be just linked to fate and the supernatural. And one final word on fate is that no matter what the lovers do, their struggles against fate only help propel it, and their love is eternal because they try to fight fate, and even fate, something so supernatural and out of their control, they try and fight it, which brings their love closer together. And fate is also experienced by the audience through Shakespeare's use of foreshadowing, and throughout the whole play it's kind of irony how they know what's going to happen because of the prologue, but it's just the use of foreshadowing that they still feel quite dragged into the play and want to know what's going to happen, even though they know what's going to happen. It's the process of getting there. And in Romeo and Juliet, fate is a force that neither the characters nor the audience can escape, linking to the point I said before. And another thing is that their death, Romeo and Juliet's death, is a catalyst for change in Verona. The dueling families are united in their grief, creating a political shift in the city. And perhaps Romeo and Juliet were fated to love and die for the greater good of Verona. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped, and good luck with your exams.